Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford File Season 2, Episode 14, The Hammer of C-Block, written by Gordon T. Dawson and directed by Jerry London. The episode begins with the arrival at Jim's trailer of an old prison buddy, Gandalf Gandy Finch, played by Isaac Hayes, whose music is also played over the soundtrack. He's fresh out of jail and wants the money Jim owes him.
I came to collect. I figured that.
Which of course Jim doesn't have, but Gandy wants to waive the money in favour of Jim's services in finding out who really committed the murder that Gandy was in prison for.
Now you find out who killed Lila McGee, and you and me are square.
The problem is, Jim thinks he did kill his girlfriend Lila. Another problem is that Gandy wants to stay at Jim's.
You can't stay here.
You got a couch.
Well, it's not for rent.
It's a fairly basic setup with some interesting twists, with Gandy as a free man still protesting his innocence, Jim clearly scared of how volatile Gandy is, and yet still pretty convinced that he definitely did it. The episode still manages a few laughs, with Jim's fear of Gandy not stopping him from ragging on Gandy.
I'm getting strong in my old age.
Well, they went to aluminum cans back in 1962. Now everybody can be a hero.
Jim checks in with Dennis, who confirms there is no doubt amongst the police that Gandy is guilty, and the detection begins. Gandy and Jim head to an adult bookstore looking for information, and Gandy upsets Jim by being stupid and not using Jim what he's hired for.
You want me to help you? Okay, then get out of my way and let me do my job.
We also get our first indication that Gandy may be innocent, as when the pair leave, they're followed. Their next stop is with Gandy's trial lawyer, where Jim takes the lead and finds out just how hard the lawyer was willing to fight for Gandy.
Yeah, went into the B&B file.
What?
Black and broke.
After using Gandy for some gentle persuasion, they get his case file, and as they leave, we find out that the people following them are a man and a woman who, rather than being the real killers, seem to be out for revenge.
I just want to do it right.
Did we ever plan to do it wrong?
His time is up. His time is up.
Back at Jim's trailer, there's a tense exchange as Jim asks Gandy if he ever beat Lila, and never gets a satisfactory answer, but it hangs over the scene and the rest of the episode. It does lead them to Lila and her friend Eunice Charles's former pimp, Pebbles Runkin, who is now a successful legitimate businessman. He's only able to tell them that Eunice is dead, which deflates Gandy, as he was certain that she killed Lila. But when Gandy leaves, Runkin tells Jim where Eunice actually is. Jim doesn't tell Gandy this, as he knows Gandy was planning to kill her, but Jim goes to see her alone and accuses her of the murder.
I got out the only way I could. It was a way out for Lila, too.
She convinces Jim she didn't do it, and tells him that Gandy regularly beat Lila. All of this conversation is overheard by the woman who was following them. This episode is covering a lot of ground, as it tackles systemic racism, sex work, domestic violence, and murder. Gandy isn't portrayed as a saint at any point, but still someone who it looked like was wrongly imprisoned for his reputation and the colour of his skin. While he rotted, the white pimp who employed him went legit and became very rich. And yet, an argument could be made that while Gandy didn't kill Lila, his abuse of her means that it doesn't actually matter whether he did or not. He got what he deserved. Rockford is very much a bystander in all this, but not a passive one, as he feels burdened to help his old inmate, even if they were never really actually friends. This is really about Jim's loyalty and if it's ever misplaced, as well as do bad people still deserve fair treatment. As Dennis and Jim discuss Gandhi's placement as the prime suspect once again, a call comes in that Gandhi's been arrested for assaulting a police officer, and so Jim goes to bail him out. Watched as they leave by the man who was following them earlier and who is himself a cop. Gandhi is not as dumb as he's been acting and has worked out that Eunice might still be alive and might still be in LA. Jim convinces him to talk things out and finds out Lila left him on a couple of occasions, but this didn't stop him from beating her.
She wouldn't marry you. She wouldn't tell you where she went. She just wanted out.
I slapped her around, I walked out the door and got drunk, just like I did every time it came out in the...
Now all Jim has to do is convince Gandhi that Eunice is dead, which he does a pretty good job at until Gandhi gets a call from the mystery woman telling him Eunice is alive and that she'll take him to her. This is of course a setup and Jim knows it, so he follows them. Jim was right and she leads Gandhi to her partner, the cop, who plans to shoot Gandhi and make it look like he was attacking the girl, Debbie, who Rockford manages to work out that, along with Arthur, the cop, are Gandhi's kids.
I ain't got no kids.
Yes, you have. You're looking at them.
Back at Eunice's, she tells them the whole story, how she hid the kids from Gandhi and made them believe that he was only Lila's killer, not their father. She has a letter from Lila explaining that she was desperate to get away from Gandhi and his violent temper, and that either she would kill him to get away or kill herself and make it look like he did it. With this sobering news, Gandhi tells Jim that it turns out he did kill Lila in the end.
I killed her.
And in his efforts to comfort Gandhi, we get some uncharacteristic dialogue from Rockford, who attempts to excuse Gandhi's behaviour. For me, this takes what has been an incredibly thoughtful story about societal justice versus natural justice and how they sometimes coalesce and turns it into abuse apologia. I can't speak for the time it was written, but it also seems completely at odds with everything we know of Jim Rockford, who has gone out of his way in the past to do what is right, not what was easy. It's clear the episode is telling us that while Gandhi may not have actually killed her, he is responsible for her death, and essentially drove her to end her own life. Thus the debt he paid to society was justified. And yet, right at the end, when Gandhi himself has come to accept this, Jim attempts to put the blame on Lila. It really leaves the episode on a sour note. I was thoroughly enjoying everything about this episode up until this point. The mystery where you start to think that maybe Eunice is Lila, as we've seen in previous episodes, or that maybe Gandhi did do it, or maybe someone else did, only for the revelation to be that she did it herself to get away from Gandhi in the most final way possible. How we feel at different times, sympathy and disgust for Gandhi, finally for it to be both, as he comes to the realization that he did kill her without killing her. It's brilliantly done, and the addition of the kids, who don't really serve any narrative purpose per se, but help us understand Lila and Eunice's motivations, is also excellent, only to be let down by the frankly cack-handed closing words from our main character. This is an episode that would be improved 100% by the last 2 minutes being cut, and so for me this is only a 3 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.